friends. It's great to have you with us again. I'm Laura Vitelli of Steiger Vitelli and Associates. This is my first video with Sarah for the firm, and I'm really excited to be a part of this today. I am a partner at Steiger Vitelli and a consultant, coaching people in fundraising, communications, organizing, leadership. I have about 30 years of executive leadership experience in nonprofits, and I'm looking forward to meeting all of you. Today, Sarah and I are going to talk about status reports and getting ready to track your progress.
Yeah, and this came from a question from a friend and colleague of ours and client who asked, what, it seems so basic, but what do we measure on? What are the actual line items in a status report that should show up, and a little bit of the why? And it just struck both Laura and I that that's actually not a question to in any way feel any kind of sheepishness about, because we all kind of wonder, like, what do we measure? What matters that we want to measure? And what does it look like, and who do we share it with? So we just thought we'd share our answer to that friend's question. And that's what today's about. So we'll just give you kind of a short overview of what we call our fundraising status report. And it essentially is just our metrics. So I'll share the screen here, Laura, I think, and we can dive in.
Yeah, the whole purpose of this report is to track progress toward the goals that matter to you. And another purpose of it then, I think, is to help you track what's left. What is it you need to finish to meet those goals? What's it going to take to do your work? So this is a status report format we've used in the past, and it is laid out with the goals named on the left. And for fundraising, and particularly then across the top, we've got our goal for whatever period you've chosen to track for. And it's not going to be the same for everyone. Sometimes it's annual, often it's annual. Some groups may have reason to track by quarter. Others might have reason to be tracking toward a multi-year campaign. Otherwise, the next column over is received. What's actually come through the door during this period. And also, we feel like it's important to track what's been pledged to be given in this period, whatever period you're measuring.
And Laura, if someone's wondering, like, how do I know the difference between a received gift and a pledge, what would you say is the key difference?
I would say that the received is cash that's actually landed in your funds, let's say funds that have actually landed in your organization's bank account. You've literally received them, however they were paid. And a pledge is a commitment. It's a promise with a date to be paid by a certain date that falls within this period. And then you get to add it up, and that's your progress towards your goal. And the intersection of those green columns at the column and row is then a calculation of what's left. And then the other things that we've found it helpful to have some visibility to are funds that have been pledged to be given. So gifts, donors have promised to contribute, and but in a future year. So if you have folks making multi-year commitments, and I hope you have folks making multi-year commitments, the funds that for the future year will show up there. And then when you combine that with what's actually coming in for the current year, that's paints a picture of the work, of the progress you've made this year, of what you've been able to raise.
have to unmute myself. I'm having fun with annotations here. It's my first annotation. This is great. So then this number here, Laura, right, is the one that, let me try my stamp. Does this work? This is our big what's left.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about. Okay.
That's right. And that's, again, two purposes: track how you're doing so that you can monitor and adjust as needed to get to your goals. And the second is to share widely what it's going to take, what's left. And what Sarah and I learned long ago from mentor and consultant Lori Jacob with, what's your gap? It's really important. And that's what's left to raise. Which
and
looks
here's
like
a little formula for it. If you like.
Goal. Yep.
Yeah. If you like that kind of thing.
Yep. Goal minus what you've received and what's pledged to be received in the current period.
Yeah. All right. Let's dig into individual giving.
So when we look at individual giving, well, first of all, I should say that these reports can be set up, again, whatever is meaningful and useful to you. This should be a living tool, something that helps you do your work. So some groups are going to have a single line report: funds raised, fundraising goal versus what's come in. Others will divide it up in a lot of different ways. We've divided it up by source for this template. Individual giving could also be subdivided even further. But right now it includes your major gifts, what's come in from your annual fund or from your base and mid-level donors. And in some cases, special events. You might also call out you could also be subdividing it by how the funds are raised. You could have a line for direct mail, a line for online giving, a line for personal solicitations. But this is what's coming from the people in your donor community.
Yeah, and just a quick example is that, so if the goal is $60,000 in this sample, I guess, the $20,000 is what your 5 donors have already given you in cash. And then let's say you also had D. Smith make a signed pledge with a commitment for $10,000 to be paid on December 31st. That's what shows up here. And then that together is what you've raised towards your goal for your $60,000 goal. So if you've got, your fundraising staff who's working on individual giving, this is the line where they can see, well, I've got 30,000 more to go for this year. And it also lets them see those future year dollars, because your fundraising team wants to be given credit, frankly, as well as your program team for all the money they raise in a year, for all the good work that's happening, even though it doesn't land on this year's goal. So this is a nice way to hold that for them. And then I'll just jump into institutional giving, which is, for this purpose, it's all the different individuals, so like people and families that you see in row 2. It's all those groups that would be categorized as an institution, and many organizations want to separate those out by corporation or foundation or family foundation. Even that's definitely a growing group that Laura and I have talked about. Does that need its own line just to sort of see the growth happening there? Some of us measure congregational giving, some of us measure community group giving, some of us are measuring public support, government grants. You might have memberships also showing up somewhere here on this line that would potentially go under individual giving or its own line in and of itself. So this is really about how you're formulating what's important to measure. You want to be able to see what's doing well and what's not doing well, so you can understand how to apply your time to your fundraising plan for the year.
And as we look at special events, special event or special events, this again, you could have a single line here for special events, or you could have multiple lines for different events you do throughout the year. And you're recording how much is received from those events. And as a result of the event. So sometimes it's precisely what came in during the luncheon or during the walk, and other times it's what comes in. It includes as also what comes in afterwards. If you have sponsorships, those could end up in your event lines as well. So that's what you're tracking here. Anything that's coming from special events.
And I guess we should throw into that. I think Laura and I would encourage organizations to be thinking about which, if not all, things show up of the types of fundraising you do, which of them can be sustainable, which of them can have that multi-year impact, like Laura mentioned with the event. For our organizations we've worked with, we've really grown our multi-year support through special events. You all know about the Benevon model, raising more money, those things, and many, many other types of fundraising models can work to do that kind of multi-year giving, as well as just telling your donors that it's really what helps you plan ahead. So for your clients, because that's true. So that's an important reminder on special events that Laura mentioned. Did I cut you off on special events, or should I move on to past pledges?
Let's talk about past pledges.
Okay, so past pledges, this is a little bit of a funky one that I think just about once a year, I have to kind of remind myself what we're measuring. And then when you build these reports in your database, which is a whole nother thing, right? It's like, these are nice to be able to show what you want to measure, and then thinking about how you actually do it in your database is a whole nother thing. So we've got a little offer for you at the end to help you out with that, if that's something that you run into, like we have over the years. But this line is about the work you did in a different year, a previous year. So this line right here is in your 2020 status report. It's this stuff, right? It's the stuff you did in a previous year that now is being paid this year. So when Dee made her pledge last year of $10,000, she paid it this year, and she did it again for this year in 2021. She's making that pledge for 2022. So Dee's gift from last year that she pledged shows up here. So, and you can see we made this number big in our little sample because it's really nice to start the year with something in the bank, or something at least on the books if it's not in the bank. So Laura and I have started the years of our work together with $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 to get going on the year, and know that you're going to have that coming in from those donors who gave to you in a previous year, or committed to giving in a previous year.
Yeah, with 15, 20, 25% of the fundraising goal for the year already pledged.
Yeah, and would you call that kind of a target if you're building an individual giving program, to try to get up to that 15 to 25%?
Sure adds a lot of stability.
Yeah.
To be having that many donors willing to say, we trust you, we're ready to invest in this long term. And
you know who else loves this number? Of course, your leadership, your staff leadership, your executive director, your CEO, but also your fundraising volunteers love this number. They love knowing that when you're telling them about the status report, which you should be sharing this with them, that you've already got X raised because of their gifts and many others. So that's a fun one. So there's our totals.
Yep. Add it all up, see where you're at, and then see what's left. And then share that number and this report widely. This isn't only for your fundraising leadership or your fundraising team or your executive director. Share it throughout the organization. Share it with your volunteer fundraisers. Share it with your donors, with anyone who asks, because it's what helps people see their role in fundraising, right? To be talking about what's left, what it takes to do the work, for everyone who has a role in this to pat themselves on the back over the progress that's being made, including your program staff, because without the impact that they're creating in the community, the fundraisers wouldn't be able to raise any money. And then so that as people know, when people know what it's going to take and they talk about what it's going to take, then the resources to make it happen will come. That's
You will.
the abundance that we really believe in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is that number that should get woven into your e-communications, to your non-ask communications. So when you do kind of, we'd recommend, doing kind of an audit with your full team, like where can we be telling people this number in our external communications? And that's a really important reason why you would also share it with program staff and all the folks that Laura mentioned, is because this can then get woven into everything you're writing about and saying. So that's really clear and transparent what it takes financially to do the work that you're doing. And we think that that's what community deserves, donors deserve, fundraisers deserve. We need to be clear about the money that's needed to make our missions happen. And so you can think about it from a sense of naming truth. It takes money to undo harm. And that, I guess I'll segue into the community-centric factors. We also think that this is new for us. We started measuring these types of things only recently. Lots of you out there have been measuring these things for a long time, so props to you. So if you have other ideas, we'd love to hear what you're measuring for community-centric factors. We'll post this on our socials and stuff, and we'd love to know what you're measuring. But unless we measure it, it's really hard to convince ourselves and others that it matters. So find a way to measure something that feels like centering the community. I mean, of course, centering the fundraising for the community is an important bit, and that's here. But noting things like partnership funding, when you've been able to distribute funds to other organizations in your ecosystem, that's a hugely important piece. I know Black Visions and our friend Mallory Mitchell, I think her whole job is doing just that, is redistributing funds from the abundance that Black Visions received. So props to them. So that's where, you might want to track that. Those are huge wins to share. Volunteer hours matter, different types of outreach, touches that you're getting with people who are learning. They're learning about the harm that your organization is trying to undo. And then don't forget about planned giving. That's sometimes for some of us who don't have access to significant, in our own estimation, dollars to give during our lifetimes, we may have something to give when we're no longer here. So those are things that help kind of shape the giving, or cast the net a little bit larger for giving. Anything you'd add to that, Laura?
No, I think it's this all enriches, and all of the dollars and all of these other factors contribute toward your impact and the repair you're trying to do. And so it's important to have visibility to them and to measure them and track them. And
that's our status report, right?
That's it. That's it. And it's important that people make these simple to produce at the frequency you need them, right? So you got to find the sweet spot between what's really meaningful and what's manageable in your work, and focus there. Keep it as simple as possible. That way it will be as easily understood and more likely to be used and shared, because it really can be a valuable tool in your toolbox. If you need any assistance putting together a report or freshening up a report or just thinking through what should be in your reports, Sarah and I'd be happy to help with that. If you need help setting it up, culling through your data, thinking about how to do that work, we're also skilled and ready to help you process that. We'd love to hear from you. We've got our pleased to be able to offer 90 minutes of free consulting time to talk about whatever's helpful to you. We think we can fit about 5 of those in the next month or so in January of 2022. So do give us a call and get on our calendars, and we'd love to talk with you more about reports and how to pull them. You can contact us through our website, steigervitelli.com. There's a form there, or by email. It's laura@steigervitelli.com or sarah@steigervitelli.com. And we'll put these in the blog post and social media posts that accompany this video. And then stay tuned and watch for future videos. Where in a future one, we plan to share our work plan, and then you can start to think our work plan template, and then you can begin to think about how you connect your work plan and all those things that are driving your success toward the goals you're tracking in your status report. So
Yes.
thanks so much for taking some time to watch and listen, and we really hope to hear from you soon.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Happy New Year.